Welcome to the Wild West. This is the War Pony podcast where we are your trading post for all upcoming productions, connections, and tricks of the trade. I'm your host, Cassidy Honey, bringing West Texas to you. I'm a wife, mom, businesswoman, holistic equine therapist, and team roper. Relax and watch the sunset as we highlight events, consult on business, share knowledge of the industry, and talk to the legends and rising stars of the community. Join the tribe and make War Pony your one-stop shop for all things West Texas. So welcome to the War Pony podcast. I am the host, Cassidy Honey. Today I have Tara Hill with Hill Rodeo Cattle with us. Tara has a few things up her sleeve that she's going to share with us today. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. It's exciting.
Glad we can make the timing work. I know you guys have been super busy and life gets crazy around this time of year.
Yes, It's very crazy.
If you want to just start off, tell us kind of who you are and a little bit about you.
My name is Tara Hill. I live in Mahia, Texas with my husband, Bobby Joe Hill. And then we have one 10-year-old son named Trip Hill. I grew up in Belton, Texas. I grew up showing livestock and rodeoing all throughout. And then I went to Hill College on a rodeo scholarship, and I rodeoed for Paul and Tracy for 2 years. That's also where I met Bobby Joe, and that was 20.
Oh, hold on. Let me add my sweet husband. My co-host is jumping in. Let's see. Are you there, Mondo?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, you just got on just in time. I think we can. Tara, can you hear him?
Yes, I can hear him.
Okay, perfect. Well, we just got started, so glad you jumped in. She was just kind of introducing herself, so I'll let her continue.
Yeah, so Hill College 20 years ago is where I met Bob. And then I transferred to Texas A&M where I rodeoed there. And then Bobby Joe kind of did the whole rodeo deal, heading professionally. He's been to the circuit finals a few times. This is a long story. So 2010, we got married. And then we got divorced in 2012. And then we got remarried in 2013. And then we had Trip in 2014. So
hey, it is what it is.
That's a lot to unpack. But I tell everybody, I'm like, that divorce was the best thing that ever happened to us. Because he was rodeoing full time. I was working full time. And it just wouldn't. I would call him at night when I was getting ready to go to bed because I had to be up at 6:30 the next morning to go to work. And he was hanging out with all of his buddies, and they were, having them a good old time. And I was like, this isn't going to work. Not working at all. So we got a divorce, and then he decided that he's going to take on the steers full time. And he kind of slowed down and just went to Texas circuit rodeos and things like that. And so we got remarried, and then we got blessed with our son. And now we are where we are here in Mahia. Yeah.
So you recently developed an app.
Yes.
So let's talk about your app.
Oh, that app has been that app.
There's a lot that goes into those that people don't realize. My other friend just made one, and it is wild.
It is wild. And trying to find somebody that understands what you're trying to tell them that has any clue about the Western industry is impossible. So that app in 2020, I thought of this idea because everybody either finds events on Facebook group or, back in the day we had the Cowboy Sports News and we had different magazines that showed events and things. Well, there was no place that you could go. And I always feel like the Western industry is behind 10 years. Yes. And so I was like, somebody needs to develop an app that you can click on and you can find flyers for whatever discipline you want, whether it be breakaway, team roping, barrels, whatever. They ought to be able to click on the discipline that they want, and then it shows all of the it shows all the flyers.
And you went by kind of area, right? If you put your zip code in, it's somewhat similar to people around you. Yes. Or events around you, right?
Yeah. So my app, the Jackpot Junkie, which I have, my first big dream was it was going to be the United States. I was going to get flyers from everybody in the United States. Well, I'm a one pony show. So I am the one person that is putting all of these flyers in by hand every day. And it was just too much. So I was like, there's enough in Texas to keep me busy. So I have narrowed it down now to where it's just Texas. And sometimes I add Louisiana, Oklahoma events, things like that.
The close stuff.
Yeah. But whenever I thought about this dream to have this app, I also was like, if it can be a two-way street to where the producers can put their own flyers in, then I don't have to do anything and I can just make, income off of it. Well, that didn't work. So back in 2020, I found this app developer in Houston and I told him my plan and he was like on board. He was like, I know exactly what you need. I can do it. He gave me a price. He was like, we had to set it up on like monthly payments because it was not cheap. I'm sure to get apps developed now, it's probably cheaper than what it was 4 years ago, but back then it wasn't. So I gave a lot of money to this guy and he basically made me a skeleton app. Like it was there, but nothing worked. Yeah. It was completely. So I reached out to Clay Dean at Next Gen, him and Jonathan. Jonathan is his app developer. And I was like, look, I went and pitched him the whole idea. I gave him part of my company. And so we partnered up and now my app is in part with Rodeo Logistics, but I am still the one that puts in every one of the flyers and things like that. And for producers, it's completely free. All you have to do is send me a flyer. I put it on there because the more flyers that I can put on my app, the more contestants that come to my app and pay $4.99 a month that
and
will
you
look
also don't just have flyers, right? Like you have like shoers and feed stores, right? And you have like kind of like that kind of stuff, or am I not on the right? Yeah.
Yes. It also has, like if you're in San Antonio which is 4 hours from me, if you're in San Antonio and your horse loses a shoe, you can get on there and find, farriers in that area. There's not a whole lot. I haven't pushed that side as hard as I've pushed the flyer side just to try to get it established. So in the future, we plan on doing more marketing for people with services and to put more services on that part of the app.
Yeah.
So
that's exciting.
That's where we're at right now. It's every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I put flyers in for the app, and then
it's on Apple and Android.
Yes, it's on Apple and Android. For some reason, they took it off of Android or Google Play for a little bit, and I'm not sure if it's back on there yet or not. I need to double check with here's another deal, is app developers work really weird hours. So like I will message my app developer and I'm like, hey, and I'll hear from him at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Is that your working hours, 3 a.m.? So I hope that one day I can either build it up enough to where I can sell out to Rodeo Logistics and they can take it over, or just keep going and hopefully hire some more people to help me do the data input.
Do you think there'd be a way that like as a producer, they could post their own flyer and kind of eliminate?
Yeah, that's eventually what I want, is it to be like a B2B app to where they can get on there and they can post their own. The problem is that a lot of these producers are not very tech. Now, I'm not saying that there's not any that are, there's a lot that are tech savvy, but there's some that still like put their flyers on a postcard and then take a picture of the postcard, and that's what they post on Facebook. So I don't know.
Especially in the team roping category.
Yeah. So I don't know if they know how to get on the backside of an app and add their own flyer. So right now it's just me.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. Well, it's exciting though. I mean, I remember when you first released it and it was like, holy cow, this is cool. And people do travel so much. Like San Antonio is 4 for you and it's about 5.5, 6 for us. So like we'd have no idea who we'd be going to, or, and those things arise all the time. Vet, shoers, feed stores. I mean, you name it, different jackpots in that area. So I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
And the name was great.
Oh, thank you. That app, it goes by your location. So wherever you open the app up, it pulls everything up within a 250-mile location of where you're at that moment. So,
Yep.
Wherever you're at in Texas, it'll pull up the apps.
I think
Or
that's
the
pretty
flyers.
cool, especially this time of year. It's pretty cool, especially everybody coming east, going to Arizona and Vegas, that they could utilize something like that. A couple years ago, we run into some people from Florida, and they were looking for places to rope and all that stuff along the way. So it's kind of nice to have a app that way, so those guys can get on there on their way to Vegas. They can drive within a week in advance, stop and hit a couple jackpots along the way. That's super neat.
Yeah, and there's plenty of jackpots around here.
No kidding.
I put in so many.
She's like, I know. So you yourself rope also?
Yes. Yeah, I've roped. In college, I roped breakaway and tied goats, and then I started team roping my senior year of high school. Team roped a little bit in college, and then once I got out of college, which I got out of college in 2008, there wasn't this huge breakaway movement like there is now. Like the only thing
it's
that
crazy now.
Yeah, the only thing that we could go to was amateur rodeos, and that was about it. So plus we had the team roping steers, so I just stuck with team roping, and I've been doing that ever since. Every once in a while, I'll get a wild hair to go back to rope and breakaway, and then I see the gunslingers, and I'm just like, nope, I'm out.
You remember when there was like 5 of us and you could rope in like a 4 or 5 and you were still like winning it? Now you're like not roping underneath a 1 and you're not even in the top 10.
Oh, 100%.
Forget it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's neat.
And
it's really neat to see how big that industry involved though.
Yeah. And I feel like there ought to be some way, because there's a lot of people like me that graduated college and then quit rope and breakaway, but they still know how to do it. But they're not,
the alumni. We are the alumni.
So I want them to kind of like eventually, if they could do something like the World Series or the global handicap system and handicap all of us, and then have numbered ropings like 5 and under breakaway, 4 and under breakaway, open, things like that. And I think that would blow it up even more, which it's so big right now, but I think that would blow it up even more.
Well, back in the day, they used to have the USCRA. That was something very similar to that. I bet if they did that today, I bet you it would go crazy, especially roping calves, breakaway, and stuff like that. Because they used to have like the A, B, and C category in the USCRA. Because I used to rope in that stuff, and it was pretty neat. Because if you roped in the A, you roped with the big dogs. The B's was kind of your amateur, and your C's were kind of your young kids that all wanted to rope. I think if they did something like that for the calf roper side of things, it would blow up the industry even more, and then even made like a qualifier to go like Vegas. The same format, I think, would be great.
Yeah, I agree. It might make me want to go buy a breakaway horse.
Yeah, shoot, girl. Those, though. I know that they did some like 3D, 4D, like same to barrel racing style, but for breakaways, which I thought was kind of cool because it kind of helps. You can get some junior high kids in there, but then you still have your college kids, because it is hard on a, just say a weeknight jackpot to accommodate all the different levels. I think the numbering or figuring out how to include everybody would really just take that industry off, because it's hard, and I'm not going to go put money up if I have to rope and under a 1 or a 1.5 at least a place. Like, that's crazy.
Exactly.
I'm on my head horse here, I don't even have a breakaway horse. So let's talk about the steers. You guys have had steers. You've raised steers pretty much since you've known Bobby Joe.
Yeah. So whenever we started dating, we bought a set of steers. We bought 5 in 2004 just for us to practice on. And then we bought, and then he started buying, I think we bought like 40 steers, and we put on just little jackpots at his mom's house in Dew, Texas, which is a little bitty, I don't even think it's a town. So we had jackpots there. That was back in the day when they were like 3 for $20, and they would last all night long. That's wild. I would secretary them and announce them. And from there, he started buying loads of Mexican cattle from the border. We started out with Fred Lucero, the Viking. That's where we started crossing all of our cattle from. He was the broker, and so we would go out there and get them from him out of El Paso. And we started subcontracting out to, different rodeo stock contractors. We still do that today. 2017, we got the opportunity to go take cattle to the National Finals Rodeo, and we've had that contract ever since 2017, I believe.
How did that come about?
Did you guys have to 2017 or 2018? I don't remember.
Did you have to apply for that, or they found you, or how did that work?
So the PRCA team rope and director gets to choose who the stock contractor is for the NFR. Now, since we send cattle to Fort Worth, San Angelo, San Antonio, Austin, all of the big rodeos, plus all of the smaller Texas rodeos, we always know who the PRCA stock contractor is, because the PRCA steer director is, because they're always calling us and they're like, what are you going to set the barrier at, and what steers are you sending here? Hey, so-and-so called me and they said pull this steer out of the herd because he did this at a rodeo. So we talked to the team rope and director on a weekly basis. So the team rope and director chooses who gets to send steers. This year, the team rope and director for the PRCA is Caleb Driggers. And what we do with our steers that we send to Vegas is in the spring, we start getting them together. So we'll pull, 10, 15 steers off of each load of fresh steers that we get in, and we'll just turn them out and let them grow. They'll have great horns, but they're not very big. Some of the steers that they're actually sending to Vegas went to the junior high finals, and they got shoot dogged in the shoot dogging there, and then they got turned back out. Then we sent them to Caleb Driggers. I think we sent them there maybe a month ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. And Caleb and the top 15 teams that are going to the NFR are invited to Caleb's house to come break in the steers. And they break them in, and then they bring them back home. And then this weekend, they're going to go to Stephenville to the Jingle Bell Classic, Ben Clement's Extreme Team Roping, where they will get roped in the open roping, and Bobby Joe and Caleb will choose the 60 head that go to Las Vegas.
So what is it? Go ahead.
So whenever you guys are looking at the steers for the NFR, is there a special look, special weight, horn base that you guys are looking for? Obviously, you want it to be big, strong horns, probably over at least 400 pounds plus. Explain that to the people, what you guys actually look for.
So in the contract, when they get there, they have to weigh between 475 and 575. And if they look on the light end, they will put them on a scale. 575 on a team roping steer is big. And we've been trying to back that weight down, and so we've gotten it down a little bit, down to 475. Used to, they wanted us to send them at 525, and those are monsters, especially for that little bitty arena. And with them being fresh, they fight the chute. They're a pain. So we try to send them just a little bit lighter, but we try to send them weighing anywhere from, some of them weigh 485 to 515, 520, usually is what he tries to send them at. And so whenever we pull them off of, he mainly wants the look. He wants the old Mexican steer, Coriani look. So long nose, horns that for sure come out. If they can come out and like curl down and up, then like that's his ideal team roping steer. But even if and especially if they're like, the horns do that, and then if they're black and then they have the red mane that goes down their back, like he's all about it. So that's what we try to look for. The other things that they have to have in the contract is they have to have their horns tipped to the size of a dime, and we have to bob off their tail switches. They all have to be bobbed off. They have to have uniform ear tags with 1 through 60, and they have to have firebrands on their back.
So In the tail, is that just so they don't, like, them healers don't get their ropes caught in the tail and lose a leg or something like that?
I think so. I really don't know, but that, and I guess maybe so it just looks better, but I think it's so that the heel ropes don't get hung up in them and they're not so messy.
And what's the point of tipping the horns? I mean, is that just a look? Do they not want the pointed horns, or?
Every rodeo we send cattle to, their horns have to be tipped. I don't know if it's a safety issue or what, but I mean, every rodeo we send cattle to, it's a requirement that their horns do have to be tipped. Along with bulldoggers, they have to be tipped also.
Heck yeah.
What does it look like taking the steers to the NFR? So you always see like the barrel racers, they get their time in the arena to practice. Like, do you guys push the cows through a couple times, or how does it look like when you guys get to Vegas with the steers?
So our steers will leave on Thanksgiving Day. We take two 40-foot stock trailers, and once we'll lay over, I think, 2 days with them, one day or maybe just one day with them. I don't really know. Anyways, they have to be there by Monday. So we leave on Thursday. They have to be there by Monday. And then they will run them through, and then they will rope them. And then whenever they rope them, that's when they set their pins. So there'll be 3 pins of 15, and then there'll be 5 extras on each set. So there's usually one small set, one big set, and one just kind of in the middle set. And they'll set the pins there. So they'll rope through them, show them where the back end is, and then they'll set all the pins, and then they're just ready to roll. One pin will go through 4 times, and then the other 2 pins, they'll only get roped 3 times.
What is your favorite part about being like an NFR stock contractor?
Oh, I don't know.
That wasn't on the list. I told you. I just thought about it. I just think it's a really neat experience, like just your story about where you guys like started off with your 5 steers, and now you guys literally give your cattle to the best of the best of the best in the world. Like, that's got to feel some sort of way.
Yeah, I don't really get to go do anything fun. Like whenever
Vegas is a job for you.
Yeah, so whenever we drop the steers off, like, that's it. We just drop them off. But like, there's no like back number ceremony or
for your steer.
Yeah, there's nothing like that. So I just go and enjoy my time in Vegas. And then, of course, everybody has to put their little 2 cents in on social media if one of the steers did something bad, and then it's like, oh, they need a different stock contractor, this and that. So, most of the time I'm putting out fires and telling people what I think about them and telling them that's free country. And if they want to do this, get your checkbook out because you can do it too.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, there's really nothing. I don't really get to do anything exciting, just stay in Vegas. And then by the time that the 10th round rolls around, I'm so ready to get back home that I just can't take it anymore. Yeah.
It's so long, especially 10 days. It seems like eternity.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you do with the steers after Vegas? Do you kick them out and let them have some time off, or do they go somewhere else, or does it kind of just depend on the steer?
It depends on the steer. Sometimes the guys that were contestants will end up buying a couple of them. If they, like Caleb and Junior tied the arena record on one of them and they bought that steer. And then I know Tanner Tomlinson's bought a couple. I think Charlie Crawford's bought a couple. So, if that steer was the one that cinched the championship for them, they'll buy them, things like that. If they won their first round of the NFR, sometimes they buy them. But if you're not, and those steers that get bought, they usually get retired. And so they have a great life. If you don't do that and you come back to our house, then you get off until January, and you either go to Odessa or you go to Fort Worth, or you go to team ropings until you're no longer good to rope. And then whenever you're no longer good to rope, we cut their horns off and we send them to the feed yard. It's just a circle of life.
That's right. That's a team roper way of life. So we've talked about the NFR, but you also do stock contracting outside of the NFR, right? You've mentioned a lot of the big pro rodeos and stuff, but locals, like if someone wanted to come lease some steers from you guys after like listening to this podcast, I mean, do you have those types of options, or kind of walk us through like what you do have available to the public?
So we used to lease out cattle. Now, since it's so hard to get cattle, we have to use every steer that we own. So we don't necessarily lease out cattle anymore. We do sell steers, and the steers that we sell are either they're not working for us, either they're too small, they don't fit the herd, or they've slowed down. He'll sell a lot of like lower number steers that are patterned. And that's the thing about these Mexican steers is once they get patterned, it's pretty hard to teach them a bad habit unless you did it to them. So we sell a lot of these, they're medium down the pen steers, and we'll let people come rope through them and they'll pick whichever ones they want. He usually sells, I don't know how many he sells a year, but he'll sell 10 or 15 to individuals, and they're not cheap right now.
No.
And that's the deal is when people call, they have a sell barn price in their head for that you pay for a longhorn steer. And then we have a price for an M-branded Mexican Coriani steer. And whenever we tell them the price, they're like, holy cow. And we're like, that's just what it is. I mean, that's what we're paying for them at the border. And if you want, something, and a lot of the times once they are trained and they're, just a good steer, you can rope them for 2 or 3 years until they're too big to fit in the chute. I mean, we've got a lot of them out that we cut their horns off this year because they were still good to rope, but they're too big to fit in the chute anymore.
No, those are the perfect ones. I mean, as long as you take care of them and you don't hammer them and like treat them like crap, I mean, they last a long time.
Yeah, they do.
So whenever you guys don't obviously have the privilege of the pro top 15 in the world to break in your steers, do you guys have a set crew? Does Bobby break them in himself? Do you guys just invite people, obviously hire a number of guys to come break them in? How does that process work?
No, I take them to the high number guys.
There you go. Yeah.
So where we live, there's really not a whole lot of open ropers that are within an app. Like, I don't even think there's Colby Lovell is probably the closest one. He lives in Madisonville. That's about an hour and a half from us. But there's really not, other than that, there's really no sure enough open ropers around us. So used to, it was me that helped break them in. And now though, I don't have the number of horses that I used to have. I think I've only got 3 head horses standing out there, and we're needing to break in like 40 to 50 steers every 2 to 3 days sometimes. Nowadays what we do is he'll load up the 40-foot trailer. We can put 50 of those little freshies on there, and I take them to either Lipan, to Luke Brown, helps us a whole lot. Chad Masters helps us a whole lot. I'll usually take them to one of those two, and they'll break them in for us. And that's all they do all day long. They rope all day long.
Do you guys have a set process on how you want them to break them in, or you just say, here you go, guys, y'all do your thing? And
we just say, here you go, guys, do your thing.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's a lot of fun. I mean, everybody has a different break-in process. A lot of people, it's similar. Some people, they want to do a certain way. And I mean, that's cool. I think that's super neat, especially them pro guys that get to actually rope good, fresh cattle constantly, and it keeps them at the top of their game. So it's really cool to have people like y'all to support those guys like that.
Yeah. So whenever if we have to break in, 10 or 15 steers here at the house, we'll run them through a couple times, show them the back end, and then we'll put the ropes on in the chute and bring them out there. And just, to be honest, I like to break in steers on a heel horse heading, because my head horses, when I use them to break in steers, they want to be way too stout on the head side. So I really like to use heel horses because they'll kind of let those steers float with them before they go left. So I'll just float them down there, pick them up, let them go to the end, and then make sure that that heeler pushes them around. And then I'll just take them straight across the pen. Try not to let that steer get behind me. Make sure that it stays out. And then I'll undally to where that steer never tries to cut back behind my head horse. And that way that steer knows that if he's trying to push towards the end of the arena the whole time, eventually the rope's going to get loose and he can go to the back to the end. Just that's how we do it at our house. But as far as the open guys, they know how to do it. I just drop them off and say, I'll see you in 2 days. And within 2 days, I mean, they literally can break in 50 steers in 2 days. And that's putting 2 or 3 runs on them.
That is wild.
Yeah.
No, thank you for explaining that. I thought that's good for, the viewers to hear, especially a stock contractor like y'all have to break in so many. So thanks for discussing that.
Yeah.
So crossing them from Mexico, that's majority of where you're getting them. Do you have can you or can you not breed them? Like you can't, right? You still have to buy them from Mexico and cross them, right? There's you'll get in trouble, I think. My sister-in-law is a brand inspector. She was telling me all about it. And I do think you can't breed. I think you do have to buy them.
Yeah. So the process and all of our cattle are in-branded cattle. It's just easier for us to have a uniform set of steers because we contract out so many rodeos. So all of ours are in-branded. We cross them from the border. We had a broker, which was Fred or Matt Sanchez. We would broker through them. Now we just do it ourselves. We buy them directly from Mexico. We don't have we don't have a middleman anymore because we buy so many. But we buy them. They're usually around 2 years old and they have to be castrated before they cross the border. So I know on this last load, they held back, I think Bojo said they held back 20 off of this load because they had just castrated them before they crossed them and they wouldn't take them. So, but they do have to be castrated and then the heifers have to be spayed before they cross. So anything that comes from Mexico, now there are special regulations like these Mexican fighting bulls that I don't know if they come from Spain. I don't know if they come from Mexico, but there's some process to get them over here. I don't know it, but for all of our team roping steers, they're all castrated. They cannot reproduce.
Is there a quarantining period over there?
They quarantine them on the Mexican side at the port of entry. They quarantine them over there. I'm not sure how many days. They do have to run them through a dipping vat right before, as they're coming across, they run them through a dipping vat for any external parasites. And then we get them, and then they cross them across the border on foot and into the pens. And then a vet comes out and looks at them and gives them health certificates. And then we also have to TB test them once we get them over here. And if they change hands, they have to be TB tested. So we're constantly TB testing cattle.
What is TB testing?
Tuberculosis. So also they all have RFID tags in their ears. So they're tracked from the minute that they step foot on American soil throughout their whole life with that RFID tag. We have little wands that we can go through and just scans them, keeps it all in a list. And if they're sold, we tell them that, hey, these steers are leaving and they're tracked to wherever they go.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
That is so cool.
How often, you say you guys buy cattle a lot, how often do you think you go make those trips? Monthly at least?
Yeah, we used to get 2 to 3 loads a month. I think we've gotten maybe 2 or 3 this past month, but before that they were really, really hard to get. We were only getting maybe 1 a month, 1 every other month, but it's starting to get a little bit better now. So we're getting more. Another problem is a lot of these people in Mexico are putting commercial type bulls on their Coriani cows. So they're not roping prospects. They're more beef cattle prospects. So that's also kind of cutting into the population of roping cattle in Mexico. And there's not, I guess there is some of these huge Coriani ranches down there in Mexico, but a lot of the cattle that we get, they come from these little bitty families that only have, 10 or 20 cows and a bull, and they're basically like nomads. They graze them in the mountains. They're handled every day. They'll put ropes on their horns and lead them up to the mountains. And so whenever we get them, they're very, very docile. And we actually just got one he's basically a pet. Like we sent him to a rope in. He got pulled the first rope in. We put him in our practice pen. Ran one on him and he just walked out, and I was like, what is wrong with him? And Bobby Joe's like, I think he's a pet. And so Trip, my son, ran up there, and sure enough, he's a pet. Like Trip was riding him around by the end of the night. He's just,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So every once in a while we'll get one like that, but they're very, very docile, and they've been handled so much as they were growing up. They're very easy to break in. So they're just much easier to work with.
So you think a lot of the beef cattle that they're crossing, is it just because they're getting more per pound per acre, basically?
Yeah, and they grow so much faster when they have that beef influence in them. So I think that people are saying, if I put an Angus bull on these Corriente cows, this calf is going to grow faster and I can sell it faster. That's another thing, is they grow so much faster so they can sell it faster as a beef cow than they can as a rope and steer, where you need to wait, a year and a half to 2 years to sell it.
So what's the problem with roping the beef cross with the Corriente? Is it just they lose their pride? You kind of just take it out of them faster? Because you would think a lot of times you rope them big beef calves, especially roping calves, they kind of have a little more funk to them. Can you explain that?
A lot of the times it's because their bodies outgrow their horns.
Gotcha.
For us.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and we've gotten some that have a lot of Brahmin influence in them, and they're terrible to rope too.
Oh yeah. Oh.
So, but yeah, other than that, and those Corrientes, honestly, I think they're just a mixture of everything from way back in the day. I really don't know, but, sometimes we get some that look like Herefords. Sometimes we get them that look like Brahmin. Sometimes we get them that look like a true Corriente, which is what I say is the black with the red mane going down their back and the curled up horns and the long, long nose and things like that. But, sometimes you get them kind of looking, we've got one right now. It looks like a Charolais. He's huge and his horns are only about, 4 inches long, and he does have a lot of beef influence in him, but it's just kind of, we just have to take what we get. We can't pick and choose with the amount of cattle that they have at this day and time.
Luck of the draw.
Yep.
So, I know that we've talked about, kind of it's you, your son, and Bobby. So what does that look like? You guys have to, with the amount of cattle you have, yes, they're going in a lot of different directions, but how do you manage like scheduling and getting them there? Do you have people that drive the cattle for you? What does your place look like? Things like that.
We have 3 guys that work here for us, and they help with the feeding, and right now they're putting sheet metal over some working pens for us and things like that. But as far as the scheduling for the rope and steers and all that, that's all Bobby Joe. He's the one that does all the logistics, and then he just says, hey, like I even had to call him today, or I had to call him yesterday, and I was like, do you have me going anywhere tomorrow? And he was like, I don't think so. Why? I said, because I need to do a podcast. He was like, you're good. But he'll call me just out of the blue and be like, hey, I need you to run a set of steers to Lipan. Or he told me last night, he was like, on Saturday, I need you to take a set of steers to Scurry and drop them off for a Mexican rodeo. And I was like, okay, will do. So that's all him. He's got so much up here that there's some days where I'm like, because he can look at a steer out of 800 that are standing out in a pasture and tell you what that steer does. And I'm like, I can't even remember out of my 10 practice steers what half of them do. So, but he can remember it all.
My husband, he can be like, hey, you're about to get this steer. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. I'm like, my goal is just to come out of the block. Like, I can't remember, oh, hey, is that steer that does that? And I'm like, shit, if I know, like when I know it, I just hope it goes. Like I'll figure out the rest of it. But
yeah, I'm definitely not that person. And Trip is just like Bobby Joe. The other day we were pinning some steers, and he looked at the steer and he goes, "That's the steer that Luke Brown won the American on." I was like, "What?" He's like, "That's the steer Luke Brown won the American on." I'm like, "How do you remember that?" He's like, "I don't know. I just remember." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, they have a distinctive look. Always look for the distinctive look. They could have like a little white snip on their hoof, or have like one horn that's tipped just a little bit lower than the other horn. Yeah, they all have distinctive looks. That's what I look for, especially like when you're roping a lot and you're at a jackpot. You're always looking for the good ones, and you're hoping you draw the good one. That way, when you know it's game time, short round comes around. Oh, we just drew the goodie, and you can kind of set it up for what it is.
Doesn't that
Yeah,
put more pressure on you? I mean, oh, you
my
drew
brain
the
does.
good one. Don't mess it up. Oh, okay.
Not
Yeah.
necessarily, because you kind of can, in my mind, I kind of already rehearse what is happening, what the steer's going to do, because I've already seen it several times. So I can just go react, basically. But
Yeah.
it's a lot. So
I can't remember that. I can't
Hell
remember
no.
that.
explain family. How does the family life? I'm obviously it takes an army to conquer all this. You know, you being a mother and a wife and stuff like that. How tell us about that. How hard is it? It's very hard. Obviously, it's teamwork.
Do you
Stuff
guys
like that.
homeschool?
Yeah.
Well, like I said in the past, we have been married twice.
Well, hell.
So it is, it does have its moments, but I think we're past all that. Yeah. So Trip goes to a private Christian academy down the road from us. It's 4 days a week from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And that helps us a lot because if we are gone on the weekends and like the timed event, and then he'll have to miss school for the NFR and things like that. So that really helps for him to go to something like that. He wants me to homeschool him. There's no way, absolutely no way I could do it. We would end up killing each other. So it's better for me to pay private tuition to send him down there. And I don't get a truancy letter from a public school saying that your kids missed too many days of school, because we would definitely miss way too much. So that's where he goes. And then I just kind of do, if most of my days, I'm just kind of sitting around waiting to get my, daily whatever I need to do from Bobby Joe. And if he doesn't have anything for me to do, then I'm, doing housewife stuff, which I don't want to do. There's 2 loads of clothes sitting right beside me that I still need to
So you're
fold.
waiting for the phone call.
Pretty much. That's usually what I do, is I just wait on a phone call, but
I'm
he'll
sorry,
usually
this
tell me
laundry
his
has to
schedule.
wait. Gotta go load steers. Gotta
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. So we try to rope whenever it's nice, every afternoon. And, back when I was growing up, I was like, my dream life would be just to rope and ride horses all day. And then it became my actual, like, I pushed that into existence. And then I was like, maybe this is not my actual dream life.
Now it makes you rethink. You want to go buy a cat and move to town, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, what do normal people do on the weekends? Like, if we don't have something going on, when this time change hit and it rained and we're all sitting here looking at each other at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm like, what do normal people do during the day? Like, is this what they do? I don't know. It's tough. So we try to rope and stay busy. And, if we don't have anything going on, we're either burning brush piles and hunting hogs at night, or, just kind of having a good old time.
Does your son rope?
No, he has roped. I haven't ever really pushed him to rope. He decided he wanted to because all of his friends were roping. So we bought him a calf horse and he roped this summer. And then after the 4th of July, he was like, I don't want to rope anymore. So we sold the calf horse, and all of those bucking bulls out there are his. So he's got 11 bucking bulls, and that is his pride and joy. He is out there every day with them. And luckily we don't have most of the bulls that we have are actually pets, and you can walk up to them and pet them, and which we tell him don't go in the pen with them if nobody's around you. But if we're around him, he can get in the pens with them and pet them and feed them and rub all over them and do all that stuff. And like, that is his favorite thing to do, is to haul his bulls to these rodeos that we contract out and talk to all the bull riders. And That's his deal. That's not mine.
That's really neat.
Yeah, I'm not in the rough stock side of things. So, but he loves it.
That's awesome. Yeah, our
Yeah.
daughter has nothing to do with roping, and kind of drives me crazy. But I just kind of sit back. One of these days, it'll happen.
Yeah.
She's into ballet.
Oh,
I'm the mom that shows up with the dually and with all the moms in the Suburbans and stuff, and I'm like, hey, no idea what we're doing here, but we're here.
Yeah, I think Trip will pick up more on the roping once more girls become a thing for him. And then I think he'll be like, oh, maybe I do want to start roping. So,
Yeah, I can I can talk about that for sure. I didn't start roping until I was 11. My dad and my brother both pro rodeoed and stuff like that, and I just didn't want nothing to do with it. I just wanted to play baseball, and that's all I cared about. And then once I hit about 11 and the girls kind of got involved, then it was like, yeah, I want to rope now.
Yeah. Yeah. Girls change a lot of things.
Absolutely.
So.
Is there anything that you want to share other than what we've kind of talked about?
I mean, I don't really know. I just am a normal person, live a normal life.
And I think that's important to say, right? Because everyone thinks, oh my gosh, this stock contractor, it's all these, like, you're a different person, but you're not. Like, you have the same load of laundry sitting on your couch that I have on mine. Like, there's still real life and regular life that happens.
Yeah. And I try to document a lot of it on TikTok and, show people the things that are. The reason that I started that whole TikTok deal was I wanted to educate people on the things that go on the back end of being a stock contractor and the things that they don't see, and, educate them on just different things like that, because there's a lot of things that people just assume, but they don't know. And so I started it like that, and then it kind of blew up. And so when I was going to Vegas, like, people would stop me and they're like, you're my favorite person on TikTok. Can I take a picture with you? And I'm like, I'm just a normal person, like nothing special. But it was pretty neat, just to meet new people. And there's a lot of people that they'll come up and they'll talk to me by name and, hey, Tara, how are you doing? This and that. And like, I have no clue who they are. I just roll with it. I'm like, hey, how you doing? How's your mom?
Yeah.
How's things going? So, but I mean, other than that, I just live a normal life. I just put it out there on social media to let everybody kind of see, what all goes on and how things go around our place. But yeah, I live right now, I live in an old double wide because we sold our other place that we had where I built my dream house. Sold it, bought this place because we needed more land. So we got more land and I had to, sell my dream house and move into an old double wide. So that's where I'm at now, but it's fine. We're outside more than we're inside. So it doesn't really bother us. So hopefully one day I'll get to build another house, but until then, this is my life.
I think that's cool. And it's important. Like, just so many people, I think, get caught up in, like, I mean, just, you talk about these pros like it's just, I don't know, just another person to you. It's like, oh, yeah, I drop calves off or do whatever. And it's like, to us, it's like, holy cow, like, those are celebrities, of our industry. And so I think it's neat just to hear, like, they're also real people. You guys are real people. Like, everyone puts their pants on the same way.
Yeah, they're just normal people, I promise. And, like, that's what I tried to explain to my son, is because I have a picture of him and Junior, like, Trips pretending like he's a bullfighter and Junior's pretending like he's the bull. And they were out here roping cattle at the house one day. And so, but like, all of these pros know Trip, and he knows all these guys. Like, he's even sang with Cody Johnson before, my kid has. Yeah. So he knows all of these people, but he doesn't realize, like, the level that these people are at. And he just thinks that they're normal people. And I think that if more people, just kind of saw him like he did and just realized, yeah, they are normal people. They're just very talented at one specific thing, and it has skyrocketed them to stardom. But but at the same time, they're normal people and they like to talk about normal things. They don't want to talk about, what they did at the rodeo that was last year at their hometown rodeo. They don't want to talk about that. They'd rather talk about, just everyday life.
Mondo, do you have anything else for her?
No, not that I can think of off the top of my head. I think we covered a lot of the questions that I had, but I really appreciate the content that you put on TikTok. I think it's good, valuable information.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
I
you.
know watching it. My wife sends me videos of you all the time. Comical.
Yeah, and that's another thing that people that like I've had people comment, they're like, "You seem like you're so mad." And I was like, "I'm not mad, I promise." I said, "I'm so sarcastic. Like I am very sarcastic. So if you see a video where I'm like you think that I'm just mad at the world, I promise I'm not. I'm just being I'm like, you got to learn what sarcasm is or something. I don't know what to tell you."
My favorite are your videos coming out like right about the NFR when the steers and all the shit talking starts. Like those are my favorite. Like I live every year for those. I just can't wait till like the next morning and I'm like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah, where somebody comments and says the steers are terrible and you need to do this and that. Yeah, I always have a comeback. I'm not gonna.
They're my favorite.
And there's a lot of times where I'm like, I'm just gonna let it slide. I'm just gonna let it slide, and then it eats away in my head, and I can't quit thinking about it until I just have to make a comeback, and then I'm happy.
Yeah, you're content. You can move on about your day.
Yeah. Are y'all going to Vegas?
Not this year.
No.
But I do have one more question about Vegas. Being a stock contractor, do they actually put you guys up with like hotels and all of that? Like, is that part of like kind of the package? Or, I mean, because I'm assuming, obviously you get paid for your cattle to be there. I mean, that's what stock contractors get. But do you kind of get things like that? Or is it kind of up to you for travel expenses and things like that?
So we get a set price for the cattle and then they will give us a hotel room. We stay at South Point, and that's not the hotel room that they give us. To be honest, I'm really not sure what hotel they gave him this year. But the people that are driving our cattle out there, Shelby and Cole, they're fixing to be married, so they'll stay in the hotel that they provided us. But they don't give us any rodeo tickets at all.
Oh wow, you would think they would, but I guess that's all for the contestants, though, right?
Yeah, so they give Bobby Joe, and even the contestants, like they don't give them. The contestants have to buy their own tickets.
Yeah,
for the NFR, like they're not given any tickets. They'll give them a set number of tickets for all 10 nights, and they're like, this is the price if you want them. So, but Bobby Joe does have a pass to get down back there behind the chute, so you can usually see him whenever Joe B's talking or something. You can usually see Bobby Joe on TV. And that's a text that I get every night of the week is either I see Bobby Joe on TV, or they'll send him a screenshot of the TV and they're like, why is Bob, like his friends, they just dog on him. They're like, why is Bobby Joe trying to look like Joe B sitting here, here like he's something big and this and that. So it's funny, but yeah. So Bobby Joe usually goes every night. And I usually just stay at South Point because I've been to that rodeo, and it's great to go watch it and stuff, but there's so many people trying to get in and out of there. It's just a cluster. So I usually just stick at the hotel and watch it from the TV there.
It's way better to watch it from the TV because we went one year and watched it inside the T-Max Center. It was like watching a bunch of ants because we were in the nosebleeds, and I was like,
it was bad.
Back here unless we're sitting in the box seat behind the rope and chutes. Other than that, I'll go watch it somewhere.
Is it the Silverton? That's the bar right there in South Point. I think I don't know. I remember there was a Silverton something. We went, and it was neat to watch it there.
The Silverton's across the highway from the South Point.
No, I don't.
But there's a Silverton Steakhouse in South Point.
That's what I think I'm thinking of. And I think they have like a bar area, like an actual like kind of like the restaurant, and then they have like a more of a bar sitting area. And yeah, because it was inside South Point. We didn't leave because that's usually where we stay also.
Yeah.
And so it was nice. So do you have the cattle for the World Series team roping too up there?
No, we had that contract for 1 year, and it was in 2020, and it got canceled. And so then they ended up, and we had bought a lot of loads of steers for that. Us and Jeff Hilton had that contract to send, I think we had to send like 10 loads out there.
Well, there's a lot.
Yeah. And so, then 2020 happened, they canceled everything. So basically lost our ass that year. And then,
that year, just everyone lost their ass on everything.
Yeah. And so they ended up having some team ropings at NRS in Decatur that year. So we sent all the cattle there, which didn't cover what it would have covered, going to the actual finale. So after that, we said, it's
and
a lot
time of the year, the cattle got real cheap, right? Like that year, cattle were not, they weren't like they are today.
Oh, yeah. No, nothing's like they are today. But, they probably, I don't know what they were costing back then. I'm sure it was $700 or $800 a head. Now they're costing 12 to 14. So
yeah,
it's nuts what they cost. And, those guys in Mexico, they go off of what the fats are bringing here in the United States. And as soon as they shoot up, they'll shoot them up in Mexico. And then whenever the cattle market in the United States goes down, they don't go down. They wait until everybody's like, everything's going down here. And then they'll start slowly bringing their cattle prices back down. But they don't get in a big hurry to do it because there's such a demand. The supply and demand on rope and steers is just crazy. And they know that whenever the December rolls, the fall rolls around, that the demand's going to shoot up because everybody in Arizona needs cattle. Everybody that's going to Vegas needs cattle. Everybody needs cattle in the fall. And so they take advantage of it every way they can.
One more question, and I promise I won't make Bobby Joe wait for you any longer. But your feeding regimen, what do you feed these cattle that are performance? So you typically get throw the shitty round bell out and whatever. What does your feeding program look like? Because essentially these are still athletes. So what does that look like?
We get a commodity mix from LNC out of Fort Worth, I think. And we hand feed them every day in feed bunks. And then we also have a hay grinder. So we throw round bells in that hay grinder and grind it up. And we put that in feed bunks also. We have some, big crate feeders that we fill up for cattle that are on full feed. And for a while there, whenever we were at our old place, we didn't have the hay grinder. So what we would do is we would just unroll these bales of hay and feed them off the ground. And we were having a lot of problems with parasites. And so somebody was like, you need to quit feeding them on the ground. So then we got concrete feed bunks, and we basically just made a feed yard system with traps, and we drive down with that hay grinder and the feed truck and hand feed everything and get them off the ground. And it's helped a lot with our parasites and not being as wormy.
Is the hay coastal grass, alfalfa, wheat? Does it kind of matter? Kind of whatever?
We usually have coastal mix, and then we have some big bales of alfalfa that we get out of Stephenville from Hippie Sanchez. So, steers that are weak or just coming in, we'll put them on the alfalfa, and then the steers that are well established and doing good, they just get the coastal and grass mix.
Do you switch their feed regimen, these ones that are going to the NF bar? Do you do anything different with them, while they're gone, to make sure they keep the weight and do it? Or are they pretty much just sink or swim, you're either going to make it or not?
We just make sure that they're weighing the right amount before we leave. And then once they get to Vegas and we drop them off, I think Purina sponsors all of the stock that is out there, and they take care of all the feed. So they'll come in there and look at them and feed. They've got vets on hand. Last year we had a steer bloat. We had to pull him off and put an extra on. So they have vets on hand. Literally when we drop them off in Vegas, we're done. Bobby Joe might have to go back there and look at one. If the one that was bloating, he had to go back there and look at him. But other than that, we don't mess with them. They belong to Las Vegas events for 10 days. And so they stay there, they feed them, they take care of them, they water them, they do all the vet care, they do everything.
That's nice. It's crazy. I mean, yeah, bring them and leave them. Yeah, that kind of makes me nervous. I think I'm too much of a control.
Like leaving your child.
Yeah.
I like it because I don't have to go out there and feed them.
She's like, this is a 10-day holiday vacation for me.
I know.
The rest of the year, it's my job out there.
I like it. I don't have to haul cattle. I don't have to sort cattle. I don't have to feed cattle. I don't have to open gates. Like
all you have to do is just respond to the assholes on Facebook and TikTok. That's it.
That's right. That's right. So, especially when I've had like a Bloody Mary for breakfast and mimosa for brunch, and then my comebacks, they start flowing big time.
They're better. Wheels are turning.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm super excited to see and how it all goes, and it's just so neat to know the behind the scenes, right? Like being able to have a conversation, and then you do get to see them on TV. It's such a cool thing, and I really appreciate you taking the time out. And tell Bobby we appreciate it. Tell him thank you. Thank you for not booking
You're welcome today. Thank you for having me.
So hopefully we'll make it that way eventually. And if not, if you're ever over in this area, if you guys come down for the Sandhills, I mean, I'm sure you'll just send them down here. But if not, we're here. So.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the War Pony Podcast. If you have a story to tell or want to be a sponsored ad on our podcast, you can always contact us at Cassidy@warpony.co. That is CASSIDY@warpony.co. Or you can always find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at War Pony Co.